I was 9 the summer my cousin Eliza turned 10. Her family had just moved to a rural village in northern Maine. 4 roads, 2 churches, and 1 broken down greenhouse that everyone swore was still in use, even though nobody had ever seen anyone go inside. Eliza's birthday was a modest affair. Just 5 of us kids, a chocolate cake, and a trampoline in the backyard. Her mom, Miss Wren, was the kind of no-nonsense woman who could fix a sink, chop firewood, and make pancakes all before sunrise. I liked her instantly. That day, the sky was dull and gray, the kind that made the trees look like paper cutouts. We played tag until we couldn't breathe, then ran inside for cake. I was sitting by the sliding glass door that looked out onto the garden. Beyond that was the greenhouse, old, rusted, and half swallowed by ivy. I'd been watching it all day. Something about it felt off. Eliza and I sat together, licking frosting off our fingers when I caught something in the reflection. Not a shadow, a face. It was in the glass, pale, motionless, framed by a wiry mess of hair. The kind of face that didn't blink. I didn't scream. I just froze. Eliza followed my gaze and her body stiffened. "You see him too," I whispered. She nodded once. Tight. Silent. We turned. Nothing. Just the garden. The trees. The greenhouse. We must have imagined it. That's what we told ourselves. That is, until it happened again. About 20 minutes later, we were playing charades in the living room when someone screamed. It was one of the twins, Madeline or Molly, I can't remember. But what I do remember was her pointing toward the hallway window. There he was, clear as anything, just standing there, his hands pressed to the glass, his mouth slightly open like he was whispering. But we couldn't hear a thing. This time we all saw him, all of us, and then we ran upstairs, stumbling over each other like dominoes. Eliza's little brother started crying. The rest of us hid in the bathroom, door locked, lights off. No one said a word. All we heard was the wind outside and the creak of the back porch. Then footsteps, but not upstairs, outside, and not careful ones either. Heavy, determined, then silence. We waited for what felt like forever before we heard Eliza's mom yell from below. Her voice was calm but sharp, like a blade slicing air. "Eliza, stay inside. Lock the door behind me." We crept to the bedroom window. From there, we could see the backyard and Miss Wren, barefoot, storming toward the greenhouse with a baseball bat. She didn't even hesitate. She threw the door open and vanished inside. 10 seconds, 20, 30. Then she emerged, dragging someone by the collar. It was a man, thin, dirty. His clothes looked like they'd been buried. His eyes were small and wild, darting in every direction. She had one hand gripping his shirt, the other still clutching the bat. The cops showed up 10 minutes later. We watched them cuff him, push him into the back of the cruiser. Miss Wren stayed outside, arms crossed, jaw clenched, not saying a word. We didn't understand it then. Not completely, but we found out later. The man was a drifter living off the grid. He'd been staying in the greenhouse for weeks, maybe longer, sleeping under the benches, eating scraps from compost bins, watching the house, watching us. He wasn't just a vagrant. He was a registered offender, convicted in 2 other states. His record was long, sickening. He had a history, a pattern, a type. And Eliza was exactly it. The cops said we'd likely interrupted something before it began. That if Eliza hadn't seen him, if Miss Wren hadn't acted fast. They didn't finish the sentence. They didn't have to. By the end of that week, Eliza's parents had put the house up for sale. They packed up and left within the month. No goodbyes, no forwarding address, just gone. I didn't see her again until years later, by accident, in a bookstore in Boston. She didn't recognize me at first. I couldn't blame her. Time does that. It protects us by erasing details, blurring things. We talked for a minute, awkward and distant. She looked good, strong, like her mother. Before she left, I asked if she remembered the man at the greenhouse. She hesitated, then nodded. "I still have dreams about it," she said. "But in them, he gets in." I didn't ask what happened next in the dream. I didn't want to know.
It was the summer of 1987, in a town so small you'd miss it even if you blinked at the welcome sign. I was 13. My sister Rowan had just turned 16, and our twin brothers Caleb and Micah were barely 8. We lived in a crumbling old farmhouse on the edge of a retired apple orchard in upstate New York, miles from the nearest neighbor, surrounded by overgrowth and silence. Our parents were gone that night, something about a hospital shift and a church fundraiser. Rowan was in charge. She always was. Calm. Tough. She didn't rattle easily. The boys were in the den playing Atari. I was helping Rowan make boxed mac and cheese in the kitchen when it happened. A sound, like thunder, only smaller. The boys came screaming into the kitchen, stumbling over each other. Caleb's face was pale. Micah's shirt was soaked in sweat. They were crying, hard. Rowan knelt down, grabbed their shoulders. What happened? Caleb could barely talk. There's someone in the orchard. In the window, Micah added, breathless. A man. He was just staring. Rowan stood up fast. All her calm was gone. Lock everything. We scrambled. Doors, windows, back porch. The orchard reached almost to the house. Endless rows of gnarled trees and wild undergrowth. No lights. No fences. Anyone could have been hiding there. Or watching. Rowan told us to stay inside. Then grabbed a flashlight from the drawer, slid open the back door, and vanished into the dark. We shouted after her, begged her not to go. She didn't even look back. Just like that, she was gone. Swallowed by the orchard. Minutes passed. 10. 20. We sat huddled by the stove, every creak of the house making us flinch. I gripped a dull steak knife. Micah kept muttering prayers under his breath. Caleb stared at the back door, unmoving. I kept checking the clock. 30 minutes. Then 40. Finally, we saw her silhouette coming through the trees. She walked into the kitchen, mud up to her knees, flashlight dead in her hand. Her lip was split. Her knuckles scraped. She didn't speak for a long time. Just went to the sink and washed her hands. The water ran pink. Then she turned to us and said, "He's gone." That was it. She didn't tell us what happened until years later. Not until we were old enough to understand. The man had been there, hiding behind the trees, waiting. She'd followed him without making a sound. Through thickets and shadows. Half a mile. Then a full mile. Always just far enough behind to see him, but not be seen. He didn't rush. He walked like he knew the orchard. Like he'd been there before. Eventually, he cut through a drainage ditch that led into the edge of town. That's where Rowan caught up. She didn't yell. Didn't ask questions. She stepped into the path behind him and said, "You like watching kids through windows?" He turned, and that's when she hit him. Hard. She said he didn't even raise his hands. Just dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. She left him there. In the middle of the road. Blood in his mouth and a look of absolute disbelief frozen on his face. We never found out who he was. No reports. No arrests. No missing persons. And no one in town ever mentioned it. But after that night, things changed. We moved by the end of summer. New town. New school. New locks on every door. Rowan never talked about it again. Until last year. She and I were drinking wine on the back porch of her place in Vermont. Kids were asleep inside. The fire pit was dying down. I brought it up, half joking. "The orchard guy," I said. She didn't laugh. Just stared at the fire and said, "I didn't hit him because of what he did. I hit him because of what he might have done." Then, softer. His eyes weren't looking at the window. They were looking at Caleb. I felt cold all over. I followed him because I knew if I let him go, he'd be back. I still dream about that house sometimes. The long windows. The way the orchard whispered at night. The faint smell of apples gone to rot. But mostly, I dream of the man. His face. Or rather, the way Rowan described it. Not angry. Not scared. Just surprised. like he thought he was the only one who could watch without being seen.
They say nothing ever happens in the quiet towns. That in places where nothing moves past dusk, you're safe. But I learned something at 16 that I've never unlearned. Nothing happens until it does. My parents had just started working back-to-back night shifts at the local clinic. That left me to babysit my little cousin Lila every Friday. She was only 6, small, wide-eyed, always asking questions. We lived in a narrow rental off Route 7 in southern Nebraska. Just fields, silence, and empty space in every direction. It was a windy night. One of those nights where the house groans like it's settling back into the earth. The walls flexed, doors rattled. The sound of the wind never stopped. But I was used to it. We just finished dinner. Lila curled up on the couch with cartoons. I was clearing dishes and half watching the clock when the dog started barking. Rufus never barked. Old mutt, half blind, only perked up when he sensed something real. I paused. Go check on him, I said. Lila peered up the stairs. He's just standing there, growling. He's looking at the hallway. My skin tightened. I dried my hands and climbed halfway up. Sure enough, Rufus stood rigid at the top step, staring toward the shadows at the end of the hallway. His growl rumbled low, like he was warning something. I thought I heard the upstairs handle move, Lila said. There's no upstairs door, I told her. She looked confused. No, then maybe the wind. But something about her voice, too quiet, too unsure, made me lock every door in the house anyway. Front, back, garage, every bolt latched. We sat back on the couch. I turned the cartoons up just loud enough to drown out the wind. I didn't want her scared. I didn't want to be scared. But 5 minutes later, I was terrified. The back door opened. Not jiggled. Not creaked. Opened. And standing there, framed by the cold wind, was a man. Tall. Gaunt. Pale face. Sharp nose. Eyes like they'd seen something you didn't want to know. He wore a dirty tan coat and scuffed boots. He didn't speak. He just looked at me, like he was waiting to see what I would do. Instinct took over. I grabbed Lila by the arm, yanked her down the hallway, and threw her into my bedroom. Slammed the door, shoved my dresser against it. She was crying. I told her not to make a sound. Then I dropped to the floor and reached under my bed. The back. Aluminum. Cold. I opened the door slowly. Silence. No sound of footsteps. The wind howled through the kitchen. The back door was still open, swinging on its hinges. But he was gone. I crept through the house, bat in hand, checked every room, closet, pantry, even the crawl space. He wasn't there, but I knew what I'd seen. When the cops arrived, I told them everything. They walked the perimeter, found one single muddy footprint inside by the door. That's it. No name, no car, no ID. They said he was probably a drifter, just a lost traveler passing through the fields. But I knew better. That man didn't look lost. He looked like he knew exactly what he wanted. And he didn't run because he got scared. He left because I didn't. The officer told me not to worry. Said it was likely a peeping Tom. But I remembered something I'd once read. Sometimes peeping Toms escalate to worse crimes. And that stuck with me. Because I don't think he came to watch. I think he came to try something. And when he saw I had locked the doors, when he saw me move, act, fight, he decided it wasn't the right night. That's the only reason I'm still here. We moved out a few months later. My parents didn't argue. They never really asked what happened, and I never fully told them. But I've never forgotten that face, or the way the dog knew before I did. Now I'm in my 30s, and I still check my locks 3 times before bed. I still keep that bat in reach. I still sleep with my back to the wall, because sometimes when the wind kicks up just right, I swear I hear that door again, and I'm never sure if it's just the weather, or if he's come back to finish what he started.